the Republican majority has looked at the state with the third highest number of uninsured Americans and said, that's what we want to model. This bill is cutting nearly $1 trillion in Medicaid spending. If you used to inherit an $11 million house, you would get no taxes. You had no taxes on that, in that estate tax. They said that's not enough.
Let's hop right back into the AOC fire. If you watched our video with her and Planned Parenthood earlier, this time she is lighting up her MAGA colleagues on their attempts to attack Medicaid. You know, how the poorest Americans get health care, something we've also placed a lot of focus on, so I thought that it would make for the perfect collab. So buckle up, strap in, whatever you call it, just leave us a like if you can. It boosts the video, helps us out in the algorithms. We really appreciate it, and it's free. So hit that like button and let's get into the discourse.
The Republican majority has looked at the state with the third highest number of uninsured Americans and said, that's what we want to model our Medicaid system after. This catastrophic failure. And I understand that the Republican majority wants the American public to be sold into accepting this by saying, you know what, we are secretly paying for Medicaid for every Venezuelan in the world, and that there are millions of 8-year-olds getting sex reassignment surgeries on Medicaid dime, and if we just take all of that, that will somehow make your Medicaid, cut that and make your Medicaid better. Sounds ridiculous. Because it is.
And this is where, not to be condescending or rude, but I do believe a bit of an intelligence drop-off has to come into play to buy into things like this, because some of the claims just so obviously don't pass the sniff test of bullshit that the only way to believe them would be to not critically engage with or think about them at all. And some of them are just that obvious, right? Like 8-year-olds getting sex reassignment surgeries on Medicaid. Come on, right? But I will admit some may be less obvious, right? Like the plan that, well, these tax cuts are to cut the fraud and cutting it will make your Medicaid better. Well, okay, then why isn't the fraud being reinvested into Medicaid then, right? Because the logical answer to we're cutting the fraud to improve your Medicaid is that then whoever is receiving the fraudulent payments, that money is going to be extracted and reinvested into the efficient, the good payments. But what could possibly improve if you're just cutting that money and giving it to billionaires? Again, you're going to weed out the fraud. You're going to use that profit for Medicaid. None of that is happening. So it's so obviously just a ploy to defund Medicaid that I don't understand how you could even think it was anything else, especially in the face of Doge searching the entirety of the government and not being able to find more than $63 billion worth of fraud when they promised $2 trillion. If anything, that alone should prove that maybe this waste, fraud, and abuse angle isn't as much as Republicans try to play it up to be when they want to cut services that the poorest Americans rely on to fund rich guy tax cuts. I don't know.
I have another number that I think is interesting. Maybe what if you're getting a $22 million house, inheriting a $22 million house? Because what Republicans are saying is that if we make all of these cuts, we will then shift that and invest it into Medicaid for people who actually deserve it. But if that were true, then the top line number, our budget for Medicaid, would be staying the same, right? We'd be taking from undeserving people and giving it to deserving people, and that should even out. But that's not what's happening in this bill. This bill is cutting nearly $1 trillion in Medicaid spending overall. Why? Because down the hallway, they are trying to finance tax cuts for people who are inheriting $22 million houses.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they think your right to healthcare, access to healthcare is worth, less than relieving the tax burden on the richest Americans inheriting $22 million properties, which is the estate tax break that she's referring to. They also think it's not worth as much as removing or raising the AMT, which is a minimum tax for millionaires and billionaires, the wealthiest Americans in this country, who can write off enough things to not have to pay taxes, sometimes even get taxes back, to still have to pay something, right? But they don't want them to pay anything. They also think it's worth less than a massive tax break on pass-through income, which is what corporation owners pay themselves, essentially. All tax breaks that the poorest Americans don't receive, will likely never receive, yet they will miss out on their Medicaid that is being used to fund it. I mean, you gotta love those worker-first, American-first MAGA policies.
If you used to inherit an $11 million house, you would get no taxes. You had no taxes on that in that estate tax. They said that's not enough. We need no taxes on a $22 million house.
Will the
And that
gentlelady yield?
Expired. I have to finish. That expires now. And it costs a lot of money to extend that tax break up to $22 million. So to pay for that, they are doing this. They are modeling and completely retrofitting the United States Medicaid system to model it after the state with the third most catastrophic uninsured American number in the country. In the dead of night at 2:38 in the morning, when everyone is asleep, when we've asked for the opportunity to do this in the light of day.
I really want you to take a moment to think of how genuinely insane that is to be said out loud, right? Because Republicans always pretend that when lefties talk about the tax cuts, it's just you hate the rich or you want to punish success. Like Democrats were fine with the status quo, which was $11 million of property or less is fine, tax-free. You could get an $11 million mansion. We're not going to tax you on it, but we're going to tax every dollar over $11 million. Starting at 18 cents on the dollar. So literally nothing, right? And Republicans were like, it's not enough. Meanwhile, these same people want work requirements for Medicaid to pull billions out from it. It's literally just also they can more structure society to benefit the wealthy. I mean, never lose sight of that goal. These tax cuts will never benefit the working class. They'll never disproportionately benefit the working class. And I just hope by the grace of God himself that we can block these tax cuts.